Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Coach Sour, and it's time once again for another Fortnite tips and tricks video. Now, the Fortnite Championship Series has occurred this season, the qualifiers have started, which means that the weapon meta for this season is pretty much solidified. It's very rare for Epic Games to make drastic changes to the meta after the pros start competing in the seasonal championship event. So I'm gonna go ahead and make another weapons and loadouts video. The last one I made did pretty well, which I take to mean that it really helped people. So we're gonna do the same thing again. I'm gonna go through all the weapons in this game, rank them from best to worst, give you a couple loadouts that I think will help you get success. Battle Royale is just a numbers game after all. So we're really looking for the loadouts that'll give us the best statistical results. Anyway, without further ado, let's check out all these weapons. Just like last time, we're gonna start with the D tier. Many of these weapons are not good, or they've been overshadowed by other weapons. Strangely, one of these weapons was literally just added, but I'm still convinced it's one of the worst weapons in the game. First, I'm gonna start with the item. It's the cow catcher, because I do want to include the items in this. Cow catcher, pretty simple. You can put it on a car, and it'll upgrade it. That's whatever. The thing is, there's two modes in this game, build and zero build. Zero build is permanent. So when you're in zero build mode, you're probably gonna be trying to use this as cover. Unfortunately, it's really not the best cover. It's very weak, it can get taken out very easily, and you're vulnerable from many sides. There was a popular thing in the beginning of zero build when these cow catchers first came out, where people were using them as cover. Don't do that. Just get better cover. On to the actual weapons. First, we have the revolver. Now, the revolver is in D tier for many reasons. 1, the amount of ammo it has. 2, its fire rate. And 3, the fact that it has bloom. If you really want to get an accurate shot with it, you're gonna have to pause. But when you're moving back and forth, you see how big the reticule is? This means you're not really gonna have accurate shots at people outside of, say, this range right here is actually perfect, here to this building. That makes it extremely limited in its utility, and if you're trying to compete against SMGs or ARs with this gun, you're just gonna get blown up. The second weapon I want to talk about in the D tier is the Ranger Assault Rifle. Now, the Ranger Assault Rifle isn't bad. It can do damage, it can get kills, it can do what it needs to do. But compared to all the other ARs that exist now, it really does not have a place. The third weapon I want to talk about in the D tier, and this one, I don't know what they were thinking with it. It's an interesting novelty, but it really doesn't get the job done. That is the Ripsaw Launcher. Now, the Ripsaw Launcher has 3 in the magazine, as well as 3 extra reloads. And the whole gimmick of it is that you'll fire it, it'll chomp through walls, and keep going, chomping through more walls, until it runs out of steam. Which it actually takes a little bit to run out of steam. It'll go through 3 or 4 walls, dependent on their density. But when it hits an enemy, it's only going to do 60 damage. And the actual application of it is very limited. Players just, they're not dumb. That's the thing. A lot of these weapons assume that a player is dumb. And if a player hears a saw coming at them, more likely than not, they're going to move. If you're in build mode, they're literally just going to go to the side, make a new box, and boom, there goes your Ripsaw. They're just watching it go right past them, laughing at you. It really doesn't have as much utility as you would like to think, squarely in the D tier. Now, the last weapon I want to talk about in the D tier, and this is another new weapon from this season, is the Charge SMG. Now, why is this gold weapon, this beautiful new SMG that they worked so hard on, in the D tier? The answer is because it doesn't work like Fortnite does. I'm in a box, and someone is trying to take my wall. What do? I edit, and I shoot them, and I close. That is the most basic build strategy. And the principle of this is that you take the fastest shot possible while minimizing your own exposure. The Charge SMG, as it says, requires charging, and if you don't charge it, you get a little 2-shot burst, which is no damage at all. Absolutely no damage at all. What it asks you to do is spend a good 4 to 5 seconds charging the gun, peek a corner, and commit to a long volley, a 2.5-second volley of bullets. only the worst players in the game are going to fall for the charge SMG. I mean, you have to consider the fact that when you charge it, it does make an audible sound. People can hear that. And if they're smart, they're not going to round that corner on you. It was their way of trying to balance the combat SMG, which they realized was broken. But besides taking it out, which they did, there was no real way to balance the combat SMG. So I would put the charge SMG squarely in the D tier with all these weapons. These weapons right here, try not to take outside of your drop zone. These things will just straight up get you eliminated. They will lose you games if you have them in your inventory. So let's go ahead and just lock them off right now. Let's not talk about these weapons anymore. Now, up in the C tier, still quite useless, but better than what we were looking at before, we have things like the sidearm pistol. Now, I vastly prefer the sidearm pistol to the Ranger assault rifle for two reasons. One, you can fire it much faster, and two, when you fire it faster, you're going to have much better round collection, way less bloom. In practice, you'll get kills more efficiently with this pistol than you will with the Ranger assault rifle. 27 is not bad for a green. It's upgraded. It didn't used to be so much. However, it's not an AR, it's not an SMG. It's just something you pick up when you drop and you can't find anything else. Something about battle royales, they want to have weapons that are, by everyone's standards, bad. They want to have bad weapons on the ground just to create that inherent RNG unfairness. It kind of just is in the spirit of the game. Also in the C tier is the new shotgun of the season, the 2-shot. Last season they had the drum shotgun, which was incredibly dominant. Whether you were a bad player or a good player, it was what people were picking up. It was meta defining. They made this gun to try to mitigate that effect. The thing with the drum shotgun is it had 12 magazine and you could literally just strafe and shoot. And you could do up to 400 damage super easily, no effort. This one requires a bit more effort, does less damage. In my opinion, it's not even as powerful as the striker, and I won't be taking it outside of my drop spots. But if you want to see its gimmick, 2 shots. It fires 2 shots, one right after the other. So actually, when you're in the beginning zones, when you just landed and people don't have a lot of shield, it's not too bad. If you're only looking to crack through their health or their health overshield, it's a pretty good gun. But ultimately, it's going to get swamped by the power of the striker and the speed of the auto shotgun. Now, the third weapon that we have in the C tier, and this weapon was just added. Well, just added back. And I honestly don't know why they're so obsessed with this gun. It's decent. I think it's really just to replace the combat SMG. It's the combat assault rifle. It's a little bit better than the Ranger assault rifle. It fires faster, and look at that round collection. It actually has better bloom than the Ranger assault rifle does, even when you fire full auto. I feel like if anything, people might be using it as a stinger alternative, but I feel like the fact that it uses medium ammo is going to get in the way of you using the burst or the DMR. It's pretty much just a non-optimal way to use your medium ammo. The benefit of it, I guess, the real upside to this gun is that it fires fast enough to where it will do bleed damage through walls. You will hit your opponents through walls. Not too much, but just a little bit. Just enough to let them know the fear of God, you know what I'm saying? But there is one thing that really bugs me about it. I don't know if it's really gonna bug you. It's that when you're aiming down the sights and you fire it, you get a lot of flash, a lot of muzzle flash. And that is going to throw off your eyes if you're aiming at a skin that's yellow or a skin that's gold, or if you're in the storm and you can't see an enemy too well. I feel like that's the ultimate killer for this gun, is that it ruins its own visibility. So, solid C tier. An item that I have in the C tier is the repair torch. The repair torch, to me, more important than the cowcatcher, more important than the tires on the car, because it lets you repair the car. And it has a little bit of an extra bonus that I'm not sure most people know. If you stand there and you apply a little bit of fire, it'll light up structures. So if your opponents are camping inside a wood building, maybe they're built up in a wooden tower, 3-4 stories tall, take them out very easily with this torch. Problem is, you only have 5 slots. By the time you get to a point where people are building towers, or you're fighting someone holding in a building, you're probably not going to have this in your inventory. Very limited utility. However, I think it's pretty useful. Now, before we look at the B tier stuff, I want to mention that there are fireflies in this game that you can capture and put in firefly jars. They'll act as Molotovs do in other games. I think they're a solid C tier item as well. They can't repair your car, but you can use them as a projectile, and if you're playing no build, zero build mode, people will hide in bushes, people will hide in the nooks of trees, people will hide in all kinds of different places, and sometimes it's good to just flush them out with fire. The thing about them is you can generally pick them up in the field. I don't really find a reason to carry the fireflies around with me, but if you see them next to you and you know there's people around you, try to make use of them. They're actually incredibly useful. Now, turning to the B tier, since we're talking fire, I'm going to start with the Firework Flare Gun. Now, I don't know how long this will be in the game. It was kind of added for 4th of July. They may just change it to a regular flare gun. They may take it out. But I think it's pretty damn good. It's the best way to apply fire. Obviously, you can shoot it, and it's going to set something on fire. It's going to do 60 damage. It'll set this car on fire. But the real novelty of it is that when I shoot it up, it acts as a radar. Actually, let me see if it works if I throw an enemy, and then I go like this. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah, see? It marks this enemy. So you know exactly where they are. Let's see if I can kill him with this charge SMG. Nope. So this Firework Flare Gun, solid B tier. In the current meta, there's a lot of variability you can have with your loadouts. If you really want to get wild this season and just hold AUG auto shoddy, you will have 3 open slots with which to do anything you want with. You're going to have shockwaves or porta-forts. You're going to have a heal, but you're going to have a lot more versatility in your loadout this season. Now, this season, there's only one sniper rifle, and that's the heavy sniper rifle. I put it at B tier because inherently, picking up a sniper rifle puts you at a bit of a disadvantage if you don't hit your shot, of course. If you do hit your shot, it puts you ahead of the curve, but the burst is incredibly powerful this season. The DMR itself is also very powerful. The heavy sniper, unless you're hitting headshots, doesn't have a significantly larger power advantage to really justify it. What it does do is destroy things. With one shot, you can destroy someone's cover. You can destroy a wall that someone is hiding behind. If you're in a duo or a team mode, you can coordinate your heavy snipes to take people out so fast. It's an incredible strategy. This heavy sniper I would recommend picking up if you're a high skill player or you're in squads, because it's huge in squads. What I would consider the sister to the heavy sniper is the DMR. The DMR hits pretty hard, actually. Even more so now that the burst has been nerfed quite a bit. Where is this guy going? What the hell is happening, bro? Where are they? Anyway, let's see if this one stays. So, I shoot this DMR. Oh my god. 53. 53 damage as compared to, I believe it's a 30 or a 31 with a similar burst. So you have a bit of a power increase, but more often than not, the burst is going to be doing the same exact damage because it pairs its shots, and it's a lot easier to track. The problem with this DMR is that the bullet has travel time. So while you're firing at them, it's going to be taking a little bit to get to them. And it's going to cause you to miss shots. Ironically, it's worse the further away you are, while the burst just excels. So these two guns, solid B tier. Now, the only SMG that I consider worth picking up is the Stinger SMG. This thing is a god gun. It was always a god gun. The problem is that they added the combat SMG for some foolish reason. And the combat SMG and the drum shotgun absolutely defined the meta of Season 2. It actually pissed a lot of people off and they started playing less. I think this season's meta is much more balanced, much more fair, much more conducive to actually learning the game of Fortnite. And I think we're going to see more people bridging the zero build and the build mode, because it's just more equitable with the way the weapons work right now. The Stinger has been nerfed significantly since it first came out. It's essentially at the power of an old SMG from Chapter 1. It does 19 damage per body shot. It has a fire rate of 12. A pro tip is that if something has a fire rate of 11, it will bleed through walls. So as long as it has a fire rate above 11, you will get that wall bleed effect when you're firing through a wooden piece. Just remember that. Always keep that in mind. You're not going to find a much better use of your light ammo. There really isn't a better option. The last thing that's in B tier is the Rift to Go. Now, the Rift to Go is a movement item. There are shockwaves in the game, and the shockwaves are superior for a very simple reason. When you Rift, you're in the air. If someone is accurate, if someone has a burst rifle, if you're in a competitive mode, you're gonna get blasted when you go into the air. Rift to Go's are a siren song for shot. Really, you're gonna wanna have it thinking that it's gonna help you escape, but the problem is you're gonna use it at the moments when you're low health, and it's gonna leave you incredibly vulnerable to getting shot out of the air. To me, it's not as good as having a full stack of shockwaves. If you're in squads, you'll want to have someone with a Rift to Go, but ultimately, I don't think it's necessary to win you all but the most competitive games. It just has too many downsides. Getting into the A tier weapons. We've talked about it a lot. It lives by a reputation. The Striker Burst Assault Rifle. In the very first season of this game, the bursts were the worst guns, and now nothing can compete with the burst. This blue burst does 30 damage per body shot, which means its gold equivalent does 32 per body shot. 64 if you hit both of them. 64 in one single tear. Pop, pop. That fast, you've hit someone for 64. If you hit a headshot, you've hit them for almost 100. So you can see why this gun is A tier, S tier, invaluable. Flat out best use of your medium ammo. The thing about weapons like the Combat and the Ranger is that they don't have the scope. Fortnite changed the game in Chapter 3 when they put scopes on the assault rifles. It means there's no going back. You can fire much farther, much more accurately with this gun, not have to worry about bloom. There's no reason you should be picking up a Ranger or a Combat AR if you have access to a Striker. The only other AR I would be picking up besides that Striker Burst is the Hammer. And the Hammer, to me, is the best replacement for the Combat SMG. You have your Striker for the distance, and you have your Hammer for holding the corners. The Hammer is everything the Charge SMG wants to be. The problem is, if someone starts firing at me with a Charge SMG here, I'm just going to back up and then poke them. I'm going to let them waste out their magazine. There's so much more utility with the Hammer AR. It does decent wall damage. It's not going to bleed through, though. Keep that in mind. It is not a bleed weapon. However, 32 damage, and when you hit someone, if you're in zero build and they can't protect themselves, say they're running right here, if they're running right through here, that's a little harder to track with your Striker, you know? You gotta be a little more precise. Why not just strafe them with the Hammer? Why not hit them for some big shots? Now, the only question of the A tier comes down to what shotgun are you gonna use? And this is more of a personal preference than anything, because we have the Striker and the Auto Shotty, both in this division. The Auto Shotty has come up quite a bit since last season. It was bad last season. It was one of the worst guns in the game at the time. However, they've done a bunch of different things. Particularly in zero build mode, the minimum pellets that you hit is higher. You hit 4 instead of 3. So all shotguns will do more minimum damage in zero build mode. At the same time, this gun can do, I think, like 130 off of a headshot. So it can 2-tap you. And if the person you're fighting doesn't have a good switch off, because the whole technique, the difference of technique between these two, let me explain. When you have a Striker shotgun, all you're trying to do is fire SMG in the downtime between your pump shots. As an example, I'm gonna fire my pump, switch, and then fire my pump again. Switch, fire pump again. Switch, fire pump again. All you're doing is filling the time between pumps with a spray. Because the Striker pump hits a bigger shot than the auto. but the auto shotty kind of removes all of that hullabaloo. If you're less experienced in the game, you don't want to think that much, maybe you don't want to hold 2 items, maybe you want to have something different here, you can use the auto shotty, and it's just simple. It's almost the same exact timing, and you're gonna destroy someone probably equally as fast. The only person you're really gonna lose to with an auto shotty is really, really damn good striker pump players, because they're gonna hit you for a huge headshot. That's the real potential of the striker, is in its headshot. I believe the gold pump will hit for a 185 headshot, which puts you 15 away from death if you're in build mode, 65 away from death if you're in 0 build mode. It pretty much wraps up the fight if you get hit with that headshot. Now, there are 2 A tier equipment, but this is Battle Lab. I don't think I was able to find Portaforts. Right now, in 0 build, Portaforts are pretty damn broken. I would actually put them in the B tier. They're not quite A tier. They can be defeated by things like heavy snipers, cars with cow catchers, throwing grenades down the tube. There are ways to beat them, but they're very, very powerful, kind of broken in 0 build. And the only equipment that is truly an A tier, an S tier, is the shockwave grenade. Not only does it propel you and give you fall immunity, which means you can get out of so many different situations. Say you're on top of a building, you don't have a way to get down, you're on top of a mountain, you've gotten in a bad build fight with someone, you guys are 15 stories tall and you're getting chopped down. Well, thank God, shockwave, you're safe. Easy. Always, always, always pick up shockwaves. These are the difference maker. These will win games. It's the one item that I can tell you with certainty will make the difference in your games. Now, in Fortnite, there is a level above legendary weapons. They're called mythics. However, this season, all mythics are grown from reality trees, and they're just upgraded versions of the regular loot pool with maybe an extra damage point or 2. They're nothing really to speak of. If you like the weapon and you can try to get it in mythic, that's great. What I would really recommend is taking your reality tree and planting it somewhere on the rim of the map, wherever you think is a good loot spot where you won't get contested too often, and focus on growing your tree to gold and mythic. That's the most reliable way. However, I honestly don't know if it's that much of a difference maker. It might just be more or less a waste of time. It's up to you. Now, there are a couple of exotic weapons that I would like to talk about. They are returning from the last season. The first one I would like to talk about is the Boom Sniper Rifle. The thing about the Boom Sniper Rifle is though it fires a sticky grenade at them, which will prevent your enemy from boxing up after they get hit, it ultimately only does about 75 damage. Really not too much, and if your opponent is smart, they're just gonna box up in metal or they're gonna run away with their shockwaves. I don't think this gun is that great to capitalize on. Maybe if you're in squad modes, it has a little bit more utility because you can swamp them with explosives as your teammates rush them. But otherwise, I would say it's a solid C tier. A thing to keep in mind too is that all of these cost about 500 gold, so they're very expensive. That's really something that works against them, not in their favor, is that it's very hard to consistently get them, and you certainly cannot get these consistently in Arena. I don't even think they're in Arena anymore. So yeah, the next one is the Dub Shotgun. Now, the Dub Shotgun I would put in the B tier. It has 2 shots in it, and they can each hit for 110 to 120 body shot damage. The real kicker though is that it gives you a impulse effect. However, it does not give you fall immunity. So while you would want to use it to replace your shockwaves, you're gonna have to be incredibly careful to not shoot yourself too far or off a hill and take a bunch of damage. Ultimately, it's a little more trouble than it's worth, especially when a gun like the Striker is as powerful as it is. The Dub isn't much more powerful than the current shotguns anymore. It's not nearly as big of a boost as it was last season. Then we have the Shadow Tracker Pistol, which I would honestly put in the B or A tier right now, because there isn't really any other better use of your light rounds. The Shadow Tracker Pistol, as soon as you hit them, you're gonna get a radar effect. And just like the regular pistol, it has great round collection. You're gonna hit a good deal of shots for a good amount of damage. And as an added bonus, this weapon is silenced. Even if you hit your enemy, they're going to have a hard time ascertaining where you shot them from. And more importantly, third parties are going to have a hard time seeing where you shot from. The thing about getting third partied is that generally they hear the burst rifle going off or the DMR going off, and that's what sets them running towards you. By eliminating the noise of the rifle portion of your gameplay, you make your fights seem a lot shorter, you keep them a lot smaller, and you really work to mitigate your risk of third party. I would say if you spend a lot of time getting third partied or your fights drag on for a long time, start picking up the Shadow Tracker pistol. It might help you out. Now, the last one I want to talk about, and once again, I don't know why it's in the game. It's very bad. It doesn't work like this game does. It's very similar to the Charge SMG, actually. This is the Marksman 6-shooter. Now, the Marksman 6-shooter, as it implies, is a 6-shooter. You can mag dump the entire magazine, and I did find out what it does. It has an enhanced headshot multiplier. The problem is, you gotta get close to mag dump and hit these headshots. If you're close enough to hit these headshots and to mag dump with this gun, someone is gonna be tearing you up with a striker or an auto shotty. There really is no situation where the Marksman 6-shooter is gonna be better than the shotguns. I cannot think of a single situation. It's a bad gun. It's in the D tier down here with the Charge SMG, with all these other things that kind of need to leave the game. I hope that at some point, Epic, whoever has a love affair with this gun, decides that it isn't worth it. Or I really don't know who's picking it up, because it's got to still be in the game for some reason. Somebody's got to be picking it up. It's not you, is it? Now we get to the fun part. If we're talking loadouts, what kind of weapons should be running in combo this season? If we're starting from the top, obviously, Striker, top tier. This is the rifle, cornerstone, you'll probably want to run every time. If we're picking up auto shotty, that gives us some leeway. We could be running a heavy sniper. And actually, this is not a bad combo. This is a very aggressive combo. Someone wants to keep us out? Well, guess what, boy? We're coming in. We're taking what's ours. Or you can hit them from very far with this sniper. You know, not a lot of people pick up the sniper because of how dominant the striker burst is. So I think just by having a sniper, you're going to catch a lot of people off guard. If you're picking up pump, you're going to want to be pairing it with either the stinger or the hammer. It really depends on your preference. The difference is that the hammer has less fire rate, while the stinger has higher fire rate. Personally, I feel like you're going to be doing the same exact damage, essentially, with the hammer. If you're fighting as you should with a pump, you should be going bam, bang, bang, bam, bang, bang, bam. There really shouldn't be that many shots in between your pumps. So whether you're running a hammer or a stinger is kind of neither here nor there when it comes to this loadout. Though I do like hammer, just because if I was fighting someone right here with a stinger, I'm gonna win with a hammer. It's just better to have the hammer at these kind of semi-close range, mid-range distances, right where the close becomes the mid. That's where you want the hammer. If you don't want to have the burst, say you're a risky guy, you could run it like this. Switch your burst for the heavy sniper, and just make sure you hit your shots. There's always a great benefit to having the heavy sniper because you can take out walls. And say I'm like this, bam, bam. I have some guy hiding maybe 4 or 5 squares away from me, and I just want to take him out. This is the loadout to do it. Now, DMR, I love this gun. I just wouldn't pick it up outside of squads. I feel like you're not going to get reliable results with it. Sorry, buddy. If you're trying to pick up things like the flare gun, you're always going to want to run the auto shotty. Auto shotty gives you a lot of versatility, but if you're picking up auto shotty and something else, always run burst, because the auto shotty actually doesn't give you the greatest range. You see, only 50 something from right there. If I was hitting someone right here with the auto shotty, I'm not going to be hitting them for anything. They're going to be getting hit for 15s, 20s, maybe 25s. That's where you do need something to bridge the gap. And this will also work at the long range for you. It's about making sure you have close, medium, and long-range options. You got to be able to operate at least adequately at every distance. So with that, I think we've illustrated more or less the principles of this season. You're always going to want a Rift to Go or Shockwave in your inventory. The Striker Burst, 90% of the time, though you can flex it with the Sniper, and that really depends on whether you're running the Striker or the Auto Shotty. Because the Auto Shotty is going to give you more versatility, however, you're just not going to hit as hard. If someone hits you with a huge pump shot in the face, that might be GG, good day for you. In general, the Striker pump is going to be the builder shotgun because it hits the hardest and you just close it up after. The Auto Shotty is more about sustained fire, so it really suits the zero builder style much more, especially if you start getting swamped on by multiple players. You can just keep banging it out, you know? Just keep doing what you need to do, run behind, bam, bam, bam. You can work much faster with an auto shotgun. So in the end, you're gonna do more damage with a single magazine, but Striker, better for single targets, better for build mode where you can isolate players. You know, keep them all for yourself. Snatch them up. I hope this video helps. If it does, be sure to like and subscribe. Share it with someone else who needs to get their loadout in order this season. There's still 2 months of this season left. Plenty of time to get victory royales, to up your skill, to learn this game top to bottom. Have a great rest of your night, day, any time of day. Peace and love, baby.